Welcome to Difference She Makes, a brand new 6-part series where you and I uncover African women transforming justice, shaping institutions, and expanding what power looks like across the continent. I'm your host, Adele Onyango. This series is part of a broader initiative exploring how women's leadership is changing the law, not just on paper, but in everyday life. Across the series, you and I will discover what really shifts when women lead. As you watch the series, we invite you to reflect on what you're hearing, and after this episode, you will have the chance to share your perspective through a short survey. This episode takes us into the institutions where power is tested and accountability is demanded. We're going to do this with Sibongile Ndashe, whose work sits at the heart of feminist legal strategy and institutional reform across Africa.
Every woman and girl has a right to be free from violence, whether emanating from the public or the private sphere. How can we be given something that is so legally flawed, and we are told not only to be thankful but to look at the glass as half full or half empty? Who cares about what's in the glass when the water is contaminated?
Yeah. Before we begin, we wanted to hear from you. Where have you seen women in leadership create accountability and dignity in your community, organization, or even your country? Let us know in the comments. As a South African human rights lawyer, Sibongile Ndashe has spent over a decade pushing law beyond intention and into accountability. As the founder of the Initiative for Strategic Litigation in Africa, her work strengthens feminist legal capacity across the continent, challenging institutions, confronting power, and insisting that justice must be felt, not just promised. Today, she helps us understand how feminist legal leadership is reshaping institutions across Africa and why women must be central to holding power to account.
I am so intrigued to know more about the work that you do, but I think I need to take it all the way back to the beginning and figure out what drew you to law in the first place.
Nothing. So you are talking to a frustrated designer.
Oh, wow.
So I was a child who went to school with 3 bookcases carrying my fabric, my dolls, and we would have fashion shows and all of that. So law was imposed, on me by my dad, who was an educator. And part of South Africa's liberation struggle being that there were very few people who had been able to go to university. So there were provinces like the Eastern Cape, where Mandela came from, that had universities from way back then. But where I grew up, it's only been very recently that we have a university, the University of Mpumalanga. So the career choices were very limited. So I come from a family, actually both sides of my family, my maternal and paternal, have a lot of teachers, because there were really 3 career kind of options that were available: police service, teaching, and nursing. So many people, my generation, those were people they had.
Yeah.
And so my father wanted to be a doctor. So when I grew up, if you ask me what I wanted to be, I had a tiger dad. People have tiger moms.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a doctor.
Yeah.
But luckily, it's not that I can't stand blood. It's also that my maths and physics marks just didn't add up to a doctor.
Yeah.
And so I used to do a lot of debates and speech contests at school. So it looked like that's what lawyers do. So you can't be an accountant, you can't count, you can't be a doctor. So from the respected professions, you have to be a lawyer. So when my high school results came, I had a university entrance, because I think at that time there was a lot of kind of classism that You go to university, that's the first prize, or you go to a technical college, that's the second one, and then you maybe go to a teacher's college, and so kind of a pecking order.
Yeah.
That has changed, right? Because technicons have become university, Institute of Technology, and the people are able to get degrees, from there and all of that. And at the time, that's where you would do design, and all of that. So it's like, you're not a technicon person, my girl.
Yeah.
You are a university girl. So that's how Law and I kind of became together. So I always find it odd how I tell this story, because people know me as a feminist lawyer, and all of that. And I say, I actually don't like the law. And in how I engage with the law, I think it actually does show that, because the work that I chose to do, it's not the work of, part of it is, yes, states have to respect the rule of law, but how we engage with the law is by asking the question, why is this law the law?
Exactly.
So it's to see the law as something that can protect, but we are not using it to protect people every day. It's to change it so that it makes sense, So the question that we ask is, why is this law the law? Actually, like, why should this exist? Why would you have this instead of that?
Yeah.
And so I think that my disrespect for the law continues.
And it's important. And it's so important, even the work that you do when we're talking about strategic litigation, like, it's important. Your disrespect for the law has a place. One thing that's also a thread is leadership. It's what you're doing now at Isla. But I want to know when that was born.
When it comes to Isla, I have never had any ambition to start an organization. But how this happened was, in Interright's time in London, Interright's closed the same year that Isla was founded. So it became clear that this organization has gotten to a stage where it's actually unsalvageable for whatever reason. And I remember going to Uganda and sitting at a guest lodge and then developing a concept note.
Wow.
To start an organization. And in February 2014, I asked someone, Terry McGovern, who was a professor at Columbia, who used to work for Ford, to help me convene a donor convening. And it was a whole day.
Wow.
Of just saying, there is something that's waiting to be born. And we are here to present it. And I want you to give me money, to go and do this thing. March the 21st, I was at a wedding. I got an email. We had our first grant approved.
Wow.
And it was 150,000 euros.
Wow.
By the 1st of July, we had commitments of over 1.1 million.
Wow.
I had no staff, I had no office, I just had this concept note that I sold and people believed into. I would have been okay to sit in my little desk at Interrights and actually work, because I like my job as a lawyer. I had never been a manager before. I only supervised interns before I founded. So it was very clear to me that this was going to be a difficult journey, because I'd never modeled myself around, leadership, or that's what I was trying to kind of calculate. I wanted to lead my cases, I wanted to lead, that work, that I was doing.
Yeah. There is a term that is talked about a lot, which is feminist leadership. And what does it look like for you in a day-to-day, in everyday practice?
Just as there are different forms of feminism, you have to land at a place where you are doing things not because they are done, but because it's something that you also believe in as part of your feminism. So I know that I am very big on autonomy, and agency. So one of the things about the organization was that it was going to be a social experiment. I was going to take a group of Black women and say, I heard that people say we can't get on together, that sometimes we need a bit of testosterone, in this space to balance out the estrogen that flows, violently,
Yes.
So I disputed that because I come from love. I come from being affirmed and validated by many women in my life from the time I was a child.
Yeah.
People that I've worked with over time. I said I'm lucky, but I am also a person who is loved. And I know that, I believe that, and I feel that. And I thought, growing up in South Africa, we've had challenges. Racism, still ongoing, sexism, classism. Can we, this is the social experiment where we are rooting for each other, where we are doing all of these things. It's to say, this is us.
Yeah.
We have removed racism. We have removed whatever. I mean, with sexism, of course, there's a problem because we can be princesses and foot soldier, for patriarchy. But what would the space like that actually look like?
Yeah.
We are obviously going to have disputes. We are going to have to think about how we find each other when we have lost each other, at times where we're not even capable of being generous. How are we going to do that? So when people come in is to say, this is a political project. We have got workspaces, but this is what we are going to do. In the beginning, I experimented a lot with what people call feminist leadership. Let's create a space for healing, for self-care. We want to hold you in your complexity, in your whole. Tell us what's going on so that we can meet you where you are. Failed miserably. Because we didn't have the tools. So you come as you are and you tell us. What happens is you have a Monday morning meeting where people are bawling because they're hearing the most horrendous thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, what we are doing here, it's really spreading.
Yeah.
A trauma, a sadness, and pain.
Yeah.
And I knew that I wasn't that kind of a healer. And so I think halfway into the organization, it became clear to me, I think around COVID, that I needed to define the kind of feminist leadership that I want this organization to be. Because in the beginning, you hear that, and I think at around the time I'd also been reading about founders who were feminists, and the idea that you don't want to conceive of something and then you hold it so tightly that you destroy it, you kill it, it never gets to live because of how you held it.
Yeah.
So you open it up and you say, come, let's co-dream, let's co-create, and all of that. And I remembered when I was saying in the beginning that I'm happy to do the litigation work, but I'm looking for someone to be a director who can do all of these other things that directors do. And someone said to me, you actually don't want to do that because you have a vision. So don't say you only know the what. You have to figure out the how. Because someone's how may actually end up frustrating the what, that you have. And so my feminist leadership was, this is how I'm going to build the organization by saying to people, I know and we should know we've got a strategy, so I believe in strategic coherence that we have. This is who we are and this is how we believe we are going to change the world. So for me, feminist leadership is that being unwavering for one about what it is, knowing what you want to do, so that you don't keep on changing whatever vision that you have. Because that's the level of consistency that people need to have. So yes, accept feedback, take other people's views, but the thing that you want to build, you cannot, when the wind is blowing that way, and then it's like, these are the people that we are doing, these are the things. When people speak about the organization or whatever it is that you are doing, if there is feminist leadership, is that it is known. This is who they are and this is what they do. It's not another women's rights organization, that's working with lawyers. That's what they do.
Another area of work that you probably have projects and cases you're working on when we talk about GBV. And what we're seeing now is an increase in tech facilitated violence, right? Gender-based violence. And it almost feels like the law plays catch up to the tech advancements in how violence shows up, right? I want to know this, because this is an issue Kenya is facing. What is it like in South Africa? And what are you seeing working when you're dealing with such cases, and where are the gaps still?
One of my current struggles is the new African Union Convention on Ending Violence Against Women and Girls. It's nonsensical. It's shambolic. It's unimaginable that the union can come up with a treaty that does not make sense. The work that we and other partners do is to say where there are gaps in the law, because yes, we have got normative standards that talks about protecting women from violence, which can be extended. But what we need here is specificity, right? Because yes, there are things that you can say the state must do, but tech facilitated, it's also being in conversation with big tech, right? Because these are the platforms where this harm, is taking place.
Exactly.
So regulating, removing, this is what we are seeing now with Grok on X, right?
Exactly.
Undressing, women and all of that.
Yeah.
And this is what's been happening the past month, right? And it's growing. We have seen doxing.
Yes.
A decade ago, we were dealing with revenge porn.
Yeah.
These are all things that are happening in the tech space. So different pieces of legislation have been developed. We have seen some successful prosecutions in some instances. What is becoming difficult is in this context where human rights standards are being deliberately regressed so that we do not know, not us, because we know and we have always known, so that a situation is created where nothing is known. So if we are saying states have obligations to end tech-based violence, we muddy the water so that, just do something, but we don't know what it is that needs to be done.
Yeah.
So this is a big frustration about this convention, which mentions cyberspace, which is already kind of limited, because that's why we talk about tech facilitated.
Yeah.
That is the technology that facilitates this. This convention is not drafted like a convention. It doesn't have the way we know that you have a preamble, then you have the substantive articles, and then you've got the operational section. Things are just like everywhere. But how it deals with cyberspace, it's that it only thinks about cyberspace as a location of harm. So it's like an add-on, including cyberspace, and there are zero state obligations on what states must do to end tech-facilitated GBV. This is a convention that was developed in 2024, when we have already started doing these things at a domestic level. So regionally, using this convention to hold states to account on what they need to do to end tech-facilitated GBV, there are zero standards. And we are saying this is progress. So we are going to have to move, right, quite fast. And how we are going to do that, we are going to have to fight the regression. And we have to fight the propaganda that's coming from our circles. This convention is supported by UN Women. UN Women is telling member states to ratify this. UN Women has developed amazing standards on tech-facilitated GBV.
True. Yeah.
And so there are two things that we have to think about as African feminists. Is that if the African Union was dealing with something that was not just violence against women and girls, they would never allow such a convention or treaty to pass. But it's that women's thing, right? If UN Women was doing this convention anywhere in the world, they would not allow this. This is the third regional treaty on violence against women. We've got the Belém de Pará from the Inter-Americans. We've got the Istanbul Convention from the Europeans. And Africa is the third and the latest one. And ours has no recognizable kind of framework. It doesn't follow normative standards. It doesn't build on existing standards. It is an embarrassment. For us, a human rights treaty is a legal instrument.
Yeah, it's a tool.
So now if you're just going to use it like a banner, like a placard, you are going to a march, that end violence against women, and you don't follow the logic of international human rights law, something that we know is already facing attacks from anti-rights actors, from belligerent governments, obviously now led by the United States. How can we be given something that is so legally flawed, and we are told not only to be thankful, but to look at the glass as half full or half empty? Who cares about what's in the glass?
Yeah.
Or how full it is when the water is contaminated?
Yeah.
So at the legal level, I think those are part of the frustrations when, for the first time, we are seeing things that are just so shambolic. In Maputo Protocol, there were things that we won and there were things that we lost. And we could say, this is a regression 1, 2, and 3. This is what it could have looked like. This convention is a very short convention, very few substantive articles, about 11. Each article is fundamentally flawed.
Each of them.
Yeah, and it's not just the clawback or the regression, it's that it is nonsensical. It's like, this is not how you write. The first substantive article, it's the right itself. When we talk about violence, we say every woman and girl, because this is a convention on women and girls, every woman and girl has a right to be free from violence, whether emanating from the public or the private sphere. And we fought for the private sphere because for a very long time, violence in the home, in the private sphere, was not recognized, right? Kenya had a constitution like that. It was constitutionally sanctioned. That we can't talk about discrimination if it happens in personal law kind of setting.
Yeah.
So we had to fight and say domestic violence should be criminalized. There is a legal wrong when that happens. This convention can't even do that. Something as basic as that, to say this is the right. It says every woman and girl has a right to be free from violence, which is interdependent, interconnected, indivisible. Let's go back to law class 101. How is this our human rights treaty that has got this?
Yeah.
We know indivisibility of rights, interdependent, How is this a definition of the right to be free from violence?
I am so inspired by Sibongile's work and her passion to ensure women's dignity and safety are preserved across the continent. Her organization has footprints across Africa, and while in Nairobi, she took the opportunity to catch up with Achieng, a member of her Kenya team.
People say that we had that there were problems. But when you start explaining it from the beginning, that conceptually, this is... Because when people hear that there's a problem, they think maybe there are things that you wanted that you did not get, you know? So it's like, yes, you don't get everything.
That a convention can't have all the things you wanted.
Yes. And so when you try and explain that we don't want, well, we do want, but it's not perfection, you know, that we are after. We want something that is sensible. You know, that when you use the word nonsensical,
shambolic.
Shambolic. You don't do it because it's just a limited diction. It's like dictionary meaning. This is the definition of shambolic. This is the definition of nonsensical. And that's the fight. You know, here. We can live with few good things. But with what we have, it's not salvageable. Like, we can't use it as as it is. And that's the convention, because I was talking to someone over the course, says he said for him it was unimaginable. Because people say the African Union has a history of drafting treaties, and you may not like that member state sitting presidents have been given immunity from prosecution. That's an issue. It's like,
here you can't even point to what the specific issue is, because the whole thing is an issue.
So it's not like they went and they criminalized or they gave powers or it does not make sense. It doesn't use existing legal frameworks.
It doesn't build on existing frameworks.
It's, you don't know. So what we spend time doing, the first part of the legal analysis, this is why it's so hard to analyze this thing.
And that's because why there's nothing to analyze here. It's really unfortunate. And you know, for me, what my fear is because it's been packaged as being for women and girls. You know, it's being lauded as being this progressive. It's kind of the first thing we have on violence against women and girls. People just take that and run with it. But now we're saying you can't just have no analysis, you've not seen what is actually inside this document. You're saying it's for, tell me what about it is for women and girls. What about it is saying something about violence against women and girls? Because, you know, it's the politics of it that states get to say, we've done this for women and girls. Women and girls are now safer on this continent because of this. But it's actually, where is the safety? What here has made, you know, any woman or girl on this continent safer because of this convention?
We'll get back to our riveting conversation with Sibongile shortly. But first, did you know research from UN Women and the World Bank shows that women's leadership is consistently associated with stronger institutional trust, more inclusive governance, and improved social outcomes? Yet despite this evidence, women remain significantly underrepresented in senior legal and judicial leadership globally? Let me know in the comments.
In the midst of the work that you're doing, even when things are not running as efficiently, and even when there's some wins, from where you're sitting now, Sibongile, what's giving you hope when we think about the work that you're doing in the continent?
We have to imagine, we have to believe that another, not world, because that's what we have, that there is another possibility that exists, you know, for us to live lives that are free from violence. To live with dignity, to be joyful. But people are beginning to find each other, organizing across political differences and all of that, and to say, we are the people who want rights, we are the people who want democracy, or even if we have a critique of liberal democracy, but we don't want it to die in the same way, you know, that other people want it to die. Even if we have a critique of patriarchy and there are people who feel that patriarchy protects women, but we can meet at a point that says no one should kill women, you know, because women have failed to toe the line. at a certain point. So the kind of fighting back, like these cases that we saw, men suing women who speak, who say, I'm going to say your name, I'm also going to use this big tech to talk about you, as a perpetrator and as an abuser. These are all the things that actually give me hope that we don't necessarily have to have perfect victims.
Yeah.
And they are saying, I was there, I was not behaving the way that you would expect me, to have behaved, I wanted to have group sex, but not to this. I went with this too.
I still have the right to safety. Yeah.
So for me, it's like you're not going to shame me,
Yes.
into silence.
Yeah.
You're not going to use that against me and say that I am not an honorable kind of person. To have movements that organize with sex workers and sex workers saying, this is what I did, this is what I do, but that was violence and I can name it. Those are things that say we have to continue, because for as long as there are people who say we want to use the court as a site for justice, that's what we are here to do.
Yeah, and I love that young women are a huge source of hope for you. So what is one message as we wrap this incredible episode, but also incredible series? What's one message you want to leave to that generation of younger women?
One of my favorite lines is when people are beating themselves up because people are very hard on themselves. They want to admonish themselves for whatever mistakes that they have. We are flawed humans. We try to build. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. We learn where we have made mistakes, but we must always be gentle with ourselves. Like that's what we owe ourselves, that gentleness. We must be gentle with each other, but first, let us be gentle with ourselves so that we are able to look at ourselves in the mirror, to say, well done, to say that was sad, I shouldn't repeat that, that hurt, ouch. But let's have grace for ourselves, because at the end of the day, that's what, we have. I think sometimes it's easy for people to just kind of spiral into this bottomless pit of despair, because they feel that they haven't. Because when we build community that share the same kind of values, in my organizing spaces in South Africa, a dustbin or rubbish bin is called umqomo.
Okay.
And we say we don't have rubbish bin for Black women. We do not have. What's and all, we will hold you. Sometimes we jokingly say we support women's rights and wrongs.
I say that.
I say it too. But we must be gentle, with ourselves and unwavering. And it's a very hard thing, to build. But in life, when you see it being used, even people who didn't believe in that, when they become beneficiaries of that kindness and that grace, it's a beautiful thing to have, because who doesn't want to be held when they need? It takes a lot of work to build community, to build trust, but you have to bring yourself there with that level of kindness, and then that community is going to work with you. I love feminists. I work with feminists. I am loved by feminists. I don't know how many days it would take to talk about feminist grace. That intentionally, that you have to build community. And I sometimes worry about people who join organizations and then in a few months, it's like, people here don't support you, and all of those things. It's like, you build community.
It's intentional.
Yeah, and when you have built community, you don't have to ask community, because When community shows up, that's the community that you have built.
Yes.
When it doesn't show up, then that means you haven't built the community. But if it exists, then it's going to show itself. So you can go to meetings, but are you building community? You know, we can be in a book club. The book club people will show up for you when you are bereaved. And there are people in the book club who will not, because they don't feel like they're community.
Exactly.
Community is not like physical presence. Community is built, it's felt, it's shared. You know, I hold your hand and I say, I love working with you. You know, that moment where with friendships, you know, you don't consummate it. You don't like, you know, it's like, how did you know we are friends?
We're friends, yeah. But
like,
it's a magic,
right?
right?
Yeah, it's like, when was that moment? And it's beautiful, like as I grow older, it's defined, like whatever friends say, I don't know what you call me, but you are my friend.
Whether you like it or not.
It's like, I don't know, but like that's who you are.
Yeah.
And it's that level, you know, of intentionality that's what's going to carry us forward. We don't have expectations of people because people who know who are that, they will do what they can. Because this idea of being so self-absorbed, my mother died, why didn't you call me? It's like, do you know what happened to me? And so less expectation, this idea, you get it at work sometimes where people are like, don't trust these people here. You know, these people are not your friends. Friendship grows.
Yes, and it's magical. It grows anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not restricted to like your home estates.
Yeah, it grows.
Yeah.
That for me is the kind of message. Like, let's not force it. It's chemistry, it's magic. But when it aligns well. But let's be gentle with ourselves at all times.
Now, earlier I had asked you, where have you seen women in leadership create accountability and dignity in your community, organization, or country? Let us know in the comments, but as you do that, here's what Sibongile thinks.
I'm coming here today and I'm carrying loss. We had someone that we know and love who passed on. And she died in a very difficult place, you know, surrounded by a scandal around kind of financial mismanagement. And so it's been very hard to hold the space for compassion and accountability. And this is something that we had been trying to kind of mediate ever since the challenge kind of came up. We are a bit removed from it. But what has really carried me over the past few days has been this idea that you can hold the complexity, you know, that there can be compassion and then can also be accountability. And these things can actually coexist. Because sometimes when you show compassion, people can feel like you are normalizing or overlooking the allegation or the challenge. Watching people who have tried to build together something different, using the organizing principles of care, kindness, and community to hold their own to account, but still having the grace to say, you are going to go through the legal processes or whatever it is that's in store for you, but we are going to hold you as a person. For me, that's the big difference between traditional power and kind of feminist power. You know, when it is exercised, you know, in that way, where the things that you keep on saying you are doing together, where you are suddenly called, to leave it in practice. So that's where I have seen kind of feminist, accountability at work. And because that's what I am carrying, this morning. And so that's like one of the easiest example, because we have been reflecting on it. We have been talking about it as an example of where we have been forced or we have been invited, to live by what we said we were going to create.
Sibongile Ndashe reminds us that lasting justice is built through accountability, and when women lead that work, institutions, systems, and futures begin to change. Difference She Makes is part of a wider effort to understand how women experience the law and how those experiences are shifting. I would love to hear from you. After watching this episode and really this entire series, do take a few minutes to complete the short survey linked in the description, letting me know what you connected with or even learned across the series. Your responses help us understand whether these stories are changing perceptions, deepening understanding, and pointing towards the changes that still matter most. Thank you for walking with me across the series. Difference She Makes ends where real change begins, with women leading law not as an exception, but as a force shaping institutions, accountability, and the future itself.